This week, why staying overnight in haunted accommodations is so much fun until it isn't, as you'll hear in a moment. Now, I don't know if you're anything like me. If you are, you love the excitement of being in haunted buildings. Now, this wasn't something that I enjoyed right off the bat. It took me a while to kind of gain that love through investigations that I've done over the years. So I was a paranormal investigator. Today I am a ghost guide. I also write articles on ghosts and haunted places. So I still have a deep and powerful connection and fascination with haunted locations. So the idea of being in a haunted building overnight, within the law, you're not doing it illegally. You are there, you've paid for the room, you can wander a location and have free reign, or even just stay in the room itself and maybe draw the energy towards you. All of that is wonderful to me. So I had it pop up in my head during the week, and I thought, what a wonderful topic for the podcast. So that's what I'm going to talk about. Now, I wanted to start with some general information. I didn't really want to dive into my own personal experience right away. I kind of want to set this up, because if you've never stayed in a haunted location, this could be kind of like a classroom setting for you to learn what it is like and why these places are so unique and amazing. So for this, I decided I'm going to do a live Google search right now, right in front of you, technically. I'm going to do a Google search, and I'm going to see what pops up. So I've already picked the topic. Now, I haven't done this search in advance, just like with my strange news video segments on the Ghost Guy Daniel YouTube channel. I like to be surprised. I want it to be in the moment so that you can see, or in this case hear, my surprise and potential confusion. Okay, so I've gone into Google. You can follow along if you'd like. That way you can see what I'm seeing. Maybe if you're in different parts of the world, you might see something different. But what I'm seeing for the term haunted places to stay. That's funny. When I do that search, it just pops up in Google. It drops down and says haunted places to stay in Williamsburg, Virginia. So I don't know what it is with this Williamsburg, Virginia. That the fact that Google, that's the only thing it recommends in the dropdown. I'm going to say this could very well be one of the most haunted locations. I'm going to open it in a different tab. Oh, I can't do that. Oh, technology. All right, I'm going to open it in a different tab and come back to my original search because we're focused. So I have a bunch of things here. Now, I am personally in Canada, up near Toronto. I'm in the city of Hamilton, and but I can see the first few here that pop up are not Canadian. So you know what? I'm going to do them both. There is, because about 5 down, there is a haunted hotels in Canada thing. I'm just going to go over a couple of them if I have any personal experience. Starting with the Canadian ones. Yep, there we go. The hostel that they've put inside the Ottawa Jail. I have quite a bit of experience with that. You can actually read on the website if you go to ghostwalks.com and just do a search for Ottawa Jail. I posted an experience I had that involved a small group of people, including myself, a Ouija board, and the jail cell of a condemned man. So I'll let you experience that on your own. So the Ottawa Jail, I can see why it tops the list. That is a very haunted place. We are not talking about accommodations haunted. We are talking about jail. What's the word I'm looking for? The pain that they felt from being prisoners in a jail. That's a very different level. So any jails, any asylums that you see, highly recommend staying overnight if this is what you're looking for, like myself. There's a place in Algonquin. It's called the Algonquin Resort that comes up on the list. Room 202, I have heard of this one, in Winnipeg's Fort Garry Hotel. Uh, Edmonton's Fairmont Hotel, McDonald. Haven't heard that one. Oh yeah, a bed and breakfast in Kingston. That's that's foreshadowing what I'm going to be talking about later. This one's called the Hochelaga Inn. Victoria, BC. Yarmouth. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, nothing really else is standing out to me. Red Coach Inn in Niagara Falls. I haven't heard of that one. Anyway, and then I'll just I don't want to get this isn't the focus of the podcast, but I just want to see anything. Oh, the Stanley Hotel. So I'm in the American one now, Stanley Hotel. If you don't know, that is the hotel that the Overlook from the book and movie The Shining, Stephen King's book, is based on. So Stephen King stayed at the Stanley when he wrote the book, and he based kind of its feel. It's in Colorado. Yeah, nothing else in this list is really standing out to me. Highly recommend checking it out, though. Just do a search in Google Haunted Place to Stay. I went in the first one, which is Forbes.com, and there's a huge list here, which I don't recognize anything on this list. Oh, the Hawthorne in Salem. I have heard of that one, although personally, please do not get angry at me for this. Personally, I am not a huge fan of Salem in general. When I visited, I just felt their tourism was kind of overblown. Their history, amazing. I love the fact that there's a connection with Nathaniel Hawthorne. He grew up there, and the House of the 5 or 7 Gables, I forget. But that connection there, the history is very deep, very interesting. But the whole witch trial thing, I think, has gone overboard. I'll give you an example very quickly. There's a museum there. I think it was just called the Salem Museum or something. You go inside, and I expected to see these wondrous displays, which they had. But then they put you in this room, and up above your heads, I don't know if this was from the 70s, but for some reason, some American tourist things, the ones that have not been updated, they were obsessed with animatronics. We've come a long way when it comes to robots, and they had this animatronic show with these little robots that would talk and the mouth would move, but it didn't really match what they were saying. I know what they were going for, but just seeing the outdated robots doing it just kind of, I don't know, it was a little bit laughable. That's just my own personal opinion. The Lord Baltimore Hotel, is it anything to do with Edgar Allan Poe? Nope. Guests and staff have seen a little girl wearing a long cream-colored dress and black shiny shoes running by the open doorway bouncing a red ball. It sounds like she's having fun. That's a good thing, I guess. It's so funny. The article here in Forbes, it went from America's 25 most haunted hotels where it's always Halloween, and the next article, for some reason, it chose was the 10 best clean, natural, and organic shampoos to try now. I don't think it's a shot at the paranormal. I'm used to seeing stuff like that. But anyway, I digress. So yeah, do a search for that. Haunted Places to Stay. And for some reason, Williamsburg, Virginia, which I'm going to look at later. So there are a lot of places out there, and the question you might be asking is, what's all the excitement? Why is it a popular thing to stay overnight in a haunted place? And it all comes down to the anticipation. So you can stay overnight in a regular hotel and feel calm and just, generic rooms, nothing really special about it. And then, a couple months after your vacation, people ask, oh, how was your vacation? And you're like, yeah, it was pretty good. Oh, anything to report? I tried this nice restaurant, and I had the coffee at a famous coffee place, and had their donut or whatever. But that's usually where the story ends. So if you add this element, not only is it exciting in the moment to be overnight in a haunted place and something might occur, you can do a little investigation even if you're not an investigator, but as well it gives you a story. And that was, an important part of it, which I'm going to prove in a moment with my own personal story from a bed and breakfast in Kingston, Ontario. Very historic city if you don't know. So it gives you a story to tell. So when that person then asks you again, well, how was your vacation? You're like, yeah, I tried that donut, but nothing was like staying overnight in the infamous room at the Stanley Hotel. And I heard, little girls in the hallway going, play with us, Danny. And, fellow with an axe, I don't know. So it gives you that story to tell. And, if by chance you're lucky enough to have something ghostly occur, then the story is just going to be so much more powerful. But either way, I mean, you can say, I stayed in the infamous room. And that is something that will be with you for the rest of your life. So the more they talk about the infamous room or the infamous hotel, you say, yeah, no, totally. I stayed there. I braved it. I'm super brave. So haunted accommodations can occur in different ways. You have bed and breakfasts, which were most of my interesting experiences were at these places, because bed and breakfasts are houses. Now, houses are going to have that extra energy of having people live in them as homes for many years, so it's a more personal feel. The energy is much more heightened. But then you have the other style, and what you have is hotels. Now, hotels are haunted in a very different way. So it's not that more personal haunted feeling of the person who built the house or lived in it with their family. What we are talking about is a mishmash of energy. So thousands upon thousands, and if hotels have been around and very popular, even millions of different people from different walks of life, from different parts of the world, have all gone and stayed at this place. So the room that you're currently staying in, if you're listening to this in a hotel room, could have had millions of people that have graced its presence over the years. Hopefully, it's not the same bed. It's not the same mattress or bed covers that they've used over all those years. I assume you're in a high-quality hotel, although a lot of those historic ones are not. The Cecil Hotel in Los Angeles is a good example of that. If you haven't watched the documentary on Netflix, I highly recommend it, just for the fact, now they get a little bit too, I think, insensitive when it comes to the surrounding the murder of that young Canadian girl. But the history that they create, the fact that they found people, former manager, former employees, and even former guests, makes it worth the price of admission, which is nothing if you already have Netflix. So the Cecil Hotel is a good example of how negative energy can kind of take over a place and turn it bad. And the Cecil is the pinnacle of being turned bad. And for that reason, I've wanted to stay there forever. I think I've lost my chance. They might reopen it in the future as a scrubbed up version now that the housing prices have gone up. But anyway, I'm getting off topic here. So Cecil Hotel is a good example of this because of the energy in such a place where violence has occurred and disturbed, violent people have stayed and kind of left their impression on the space. So if you're staying in a room in the Cecil, which I've seen from the documentary, I mean, just looking at the room through my television, I'm seeing something that gives off this very negative vibe. And I can only imagine how it feels to stay in there overnight. And now that I just basically talked myself out of it. So even if it reopens, chances are I won't go. Who am I kidding? I'm gonna go. I'm gonna stay overnight. I'm gonna bring my hazmat suit to wear, and I'll enjoy myself. I'll be able to check it off the bucket list. Now I talk a big game when it comes to these locations, but the question I'm sure many of you are yelling at the whatever you're listening this on, whatever device, is if you can talk about this, but have you had experiences of your own? Now, not so much today, but over the years I've stayed in many a haunted location. I've even gone back to the Ottawa Jail because personally I have a special bond with that place from my experience. But this one here kind of stands out for me because it wasn't so much that I had an experience. It was extremely negative and sits in my mind as a bad thing. Like, I wanted to have stories to tell, but this is one of those stories that if I had to do it again and I knew what was going to happen by staying there and my actions, I would have chose not to and just let the story go. Now, I'll leave the bed and breakfast that it happened at. I'm not going to mention the name. I do remember it, but I don't want this to kind of be bad press for them, because please understand, it was mostly my fault that I brought this upon myself. I'll explain. There's a technique in the paranormal. The technique is known as goading the spirit. Now, I've personally used this many times in the past. It's the pressure of running an event and being the host that 20 or 30 people are staring at you and expecting something to occur. So when nothing happens, you're basically standing there, not knowing what to say. It's a little uncomfortable. And I've gotten good over the years at kind of, rolling with the punches, because a lot of times the ghosts won't come through. They won't talk. They won't. I think they're doing it on purpose. If for whatever reason they don't like me and they want to prove a point, which I've had many a point proven to me by many a ghost. So it's not anything bad, but goading the spirit is where you use your knowledge of what's haunting a location to attempt to make the spirit angry. Now, it sounds bad, but it is not. This is the type of thing where you can just kind of stir up the energy. So anger is an energy just like anything else. And by stirring that up a bit, you're hopefully opening the door so that the spirit can come through and maybe communicate with you, and maybe give you some information, or in some senses, you're showing for the crowd, who's very curious to find out more about the spirit. And in some cases, they just might need that little shove to come forward and do something. And I know it sounds crazy, me explaining it right now, but believe me, it's happened before, and I've used the technique to great success. So goading the spirit is to make the spirit angry so it proves its existence. Now, this was back in my early days, and I didn't know really what I was getting myself into. So it was me and my wife at the time, now ex. We were staying overnight at a bed and breakfast in Kingston, Ontario. Now, if you haven't been, highly recommend it. But they got all these old Victorian mansions spread throughout the city, and some in these specific neighborhoods. And because there's a strong tourist market in Kingston, they were able to convert many of these houses to bed and breakfast, so you didn't lose a lot to the wrecking ball over the years, thankfully. And I am a huge fan of that, using history and using ghosts as a way to save historic locations. So we were staying overnight in the one house, and we had heard rumors. I believe it was featured in one of John Robert Colombo's books, who's an author of ghost books. And we wanted to see if we could stir something up. Now, the technique of goading the spirit in this case was very subtle. It was only before going to sleep that night. After a very long day, we're tired, but we got to do this investigation. We want some experience to happen so we could take it with us and maybe tell the story later. So, you just before bed, you say to the empty room, if there's something here, make yourself known. Now, if I were to pick the most common statement that's ever been uttered during a paranormal investigation, I would pick that one. If there's anything here, please prove your existence. Please make yourself known. That was really the end of it for us. There was other times that I kind of said inside my head, you're probably not strong enough to do it. There was a little bit extra that I added to that, but I didn't say it out loud. I kind of just felt it and put it out into the energy of the room. And at the same time, we were both kind of visualizing all of the spiritual energy coming at us. That was probably the catalyst right there. I'm just realizing that now. We were visualizing all the energy in the room coming at us and like surrounding us before we went to sleep. What was I thinking? I'll tell you, because you're at a relaxed state when you're sleeping, and you're kind of at the mercy of whatever's. Oh, it's the same thing with the living, right? If you're sleeping, you're very vulnerable, and to invite that at me, like not knowing, it didn't feel negative, but who knows what I was inviting from different spaces inside the house. It's like basically a call out to some psychopathic spirits. Like, yeah, come on in the room, see what you can do. Oh, I realize how ridiculous it sounds now, but anyway, I did it. I'm sorry, but I did it. So, what this led to is us going to sleep, and I had a dream. Now, I vividly remember portions of this dream, which, if you know me, I don't remember my dreams at all. I could have a dream. I had dreams last night, and maybe like one image or two images come, but I won't remember details. And I've tried my darndest to remember my dreams, because I know there's value in that, but it just so far is impossible for me to do that. And the fact that I can remember vivid parts of this to this day, means it's stuck. And what I was seeing is I was seeing my then wife being murdered in front of me. And it was so over the top. Like, think the most disgusting and terrible horror movie that you've ever seen. And that is what was playing out in front of me. And I was like, obviously freaked out by what I was seeing. And then I woke up. Now, after waking up, you might think, okay, it was just a nightmare. Daniel, you came into this location thinking of this going to be the worst. You set yourself up for the nightmare. And if I were to say I woke up and then nothing happened, I would 100% agree with you on that one. However, that wasn't the case. So I wake up, and what do I see but my very scared-looking ex? She's staring at me, and like she's this terrified look on her face. And before she could say word one, it then hit me. I was extremely nauseous, and it just took all my power to get up out of the bed, run to the washroom, and I threw up. It's like it was just seconds from one thing to the next, waking up, seeing her face, running to the washroom to throw up. And it wasn't until after, I kind of felt a little better. I was sweating. I wasn't sick, because the minute I threw up, everything was fine. I didn't feel sick or anything. There wasn't anything left over. But we got together, both kind of freaked out. I told her what I was dreaming. She mentioned seeing something. Can't remember for the life of me what it was, but she also saw something violent and disturbing in her dream. We woke up at pretty much the same time, her a couple seconds before me, and that's why she looked so freaked out, because of her nightmare, and I was freaked out because of my nightmare, and then the nausea that followed that caused me to throw up. So we kind of dialed it back after that. I said to the empty room, okay, you've made yourself known. Thank you, sir, madam, for proving it. But please, oh great ghost, don't cause any more problems again. We've learned our lesson. I remember picturing the energy kind of like flowing away from us, and white light protecting us. And we eventually got back to sleep, and the rest of the night was quite calm. So that's my story. Now, please do not take my experience, as a deterrent. That is very out of the ordinary, and mostly because of my fault, what I did and what I said before going to sleep. You could take it as a lesson and just don't do that. But staying in haunted places definitely gives you stories to tell. I am a huge fan of it. That wasn't the last time, I'm going to continue doing it. Face the challenge. Go to the most haunted places. Face it and come out with an amazing story. I highly recommend it. Okay, that's it. I'll eventually be doing up a new strange news segment for the Ghost Guy Daniel YouTube page. I'm just working on that. So yeah, I'll get that up as soon as possible. Not sure right now what I'm going to talk about on the podcast next week. Let's call it a surprise. But thanks for listening, everyone, and talk to you next week.